I'm Vicki Hogarth and welcome to Southwest Magazine. My guest today is John Williamson, MP for New Brunswick Southwest. Thank you for being here today, John.
It's great. It's another good excuse to get out of the house and see some folks, so thank you very much.
It's definitely been an interesting year.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about what it's been like? The last time I think we were able to sit down must be about 6 months ago.
Yeah, I think it's been a hard year. I mean, I was in Parliament on March 13th, which is the day we made the decision to begin to close things down because the pandemic was starting to spread rapidly. And since then, as you know, it's gotten worse and then better and then locked down again. And I hope as we get into the spring here, things will open up again. You know, but there's no doubt, while I think we've weathered it well, both in New Brunswick and Canada, the health issue has affected hundreds of thousands of families across the country, and of course the economic lockdown has impacted millions of people across the country. So it's I think better days are ahead of us. The vaccine rollout is beginning, and around the world it looks positive. But I think the economic challenge is next, and I think the scars from that are going to run deep. So we're getting through the health concern, but we're not out of this yet by a country mile. What
are some of the concerns? I know that NB Southwest is definitely a huge riding, so the concerns would be all over the board, but what are some of the themes that you're hearing about in your office?
Well, actually, because of the pandemic, I would say they've been more focused, over the last year. My office has strived to represent and be there for people, and of course, when Parliament shut down almost a year ago, soon after Service Canada shut down, and I've got a great team in St. Stephen. Three people work for me there, and we kept things rolling. While we weren't seeing people in the office, we were still in the office responding to concerns and questions. And for most people, it's been about help from the government, support for individuals, support for businesses, and that continues. I mean, even this week I've been getting questions about the wage subsidy and some of the changes or some of the extensions around that. So those are ongoing, but it's really been about how can the federal government help people who have lost income, have lost work, or in many cases as well, visitors or travelers or workers trying to come in and out of New Brunswick. So it's been focused on the pandemic. It has been busy, particularly when Service Canada shut down. It was a relief from our office when they opened up again, but very focused on questions around the pandemic.
Okay, and has New Brunswick Southwest been hit more hard than other ridings?
No, I mean, look, I think in New Brunswick we've been lucky. We've been lucky because of our geography. I think our leadership as well. A year ago we moved faster, I think, than most provinces. So I think as a province we have done well. I mean, you look at the challenges they have had in Quebec, in Alberta, and to a lesser extent Ontario. I think we've done well. I think we're doing better economically because so much of our labor force is outside, whether it's in the fisheries or resources. That's helped as well. Tradespeople as well have been able to continue. But having said that, small businesses, tourism, it has been difficult. I think shop owners in the cities, which of course is not part of New Brunswick Southwest, but we are very close to Fredericton and St. John, as well as Moncton. I think the impact there has been sharper. So it has, we've done as a province, I think, better, and I think New Brunswick Southwest has held its own. But again, there's still, we're not through this yet, and the challenge is going to be for small businesses to get back on their feet once we open up again.
Now, one thing you were championing before the pandemic was a solution to Campobello, to a year-round ferry.
Yeah.
It's become a bigger issue. Now, obviously, this has really shone a light on what people on the island are facing.
It sure has. I mean, it was important before. It's become almost crucial. Islanders would correct me and say it is crucial to get this done. And I read this morning that they've extended the ferry for another month. But there's no doubt we do need a full-time link between Campobello and mainland New Brunswick. And I'm committed to keep working on it. I think we've opened up avenues of discussion in Ottawa, and I know these things don't happen fast enough, but I do think it is just a matter of time. And I say that because it's not just islanders who want it. My sense is even people off the island recognize it's a question of fairness, and the link should be there because Campobello residents are Canadian and they should be able to travel freely within their own country the way the rest of the folks can in this province and in this country. So I'm optimistic, but I know there's still some obstacles to overcome.
I know that you were talking about bringing it again to Parliament. What is the feeling in Ottawa about the ferry? And do you know what maybe the best solution could be at this point in time?
Yeah, so I mean, I raise it whenever I can, and I have joked that in the White House even, they've not talked about Campbello so much since Roosevelt was president, because we keep seeing that every time there is a travel advisory that affects both countries, Campobello has had a carve out, and that didn't just happen. That's because I've worked with the provincial government to make sure it's on the Government of Canada's agenda, and they've been talking with the U.S. administration about it. As for the ferry, I think there's a willingness to talk about it. They recognize it's an infrastructure project, and they also recognize that it is unusual for Canadians to have to travel through the U.S. to access their own country. So I would say it's folks. There's a willingness to sit down and talk about it. Now, the Ottawa's a big. It's a big enterprise. To me, we have to focus our resources and our energy on the infrastructure area, not transportation department, because they deal with the regulation, but on actually we want to build this, and that means infrastructure.
And do you see it? I know last time we spoke, we talked about maybe being a collaborative effort between the province and the federal government. Is that still something you think?
Yeah, I think, but I think so. There are things the federal government does and does not do. When I think collaboration, I'm talking about federal dollars to help build the infrastructure, the ramp system, the boat as well. It's unlikely that Ottawa, under any government, would get involved with running a ferry because they don't do that anywhere across the country. But could they be a partner when it comes to building it? And that's where you're talking the lion's share initially. My answer is yes on that. They're prepared to do that.
Great. Well, I know you agreed to be in a town hall with us that we will be doing in a few weeks' time, and I really appreciated that. I know people do at home too, so we will be speaking about this in a virtual town hall for viewers at home. That will be happening with MP Williamson, as well as Kathy Baucus, the MLA for St. Croix, and Andrea Anderson-Mason for Funny the Isle St. John West has agreed to be a part of it too. So we will be hearing from Islanders then, and I appreciate you speaking about it now.
It was my pleasure.
And then as well, can we talk a little bit about your efforts as far as bringing high-speed internet goes for the area?
Yeah, and that's probably, you and I were talking before the cameras went on about this riding being so big that there are very few issues that connect people from end to end that really get them riled up. This is one of them. Internet service in rural parts of this riding, or New Brunswick in general, were not great before the pandemic. With the pandemic, it has gone from an irritation to a real problem, because so many people now are working from home, they are studying from home, or they're living from home, and living is part of life. And when your neighbors in the closer to town or in the cities are able to get on Netflix and download and stream and have Zoom chats with their friends, and you can't, you're left out of a part of life. And so progress has been made over the last couple of years, but not enough. And there's just too many examples where the internet will just the wiring will just stop at a certain point, and people beyond that are out of luck. Now my view is more and more internet service is like electricity was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It's something we can't live without, and I think more and more government has to do more, not just provide a framework for companies to come in and lay it down, but actually mandate that it happens, because it is such an integral part of modern life. And so the government has rolled out a plan that will allow internet providers to apply for a fund so they can offset some of the cost. It's been bumpy. It's not as clear cut as I think it should be. And one of the problems is that the government, for whatever reason, the federal government, put in place a clause that if a service provider is already delivering a service and is planning to upgrade it, a new entrant can't come in, a new company can't come in. Whereas I tend to think competition's a good thing. Let's drive down prices as well as get it set up. So this actually could block progress in the short term. Now I don't want to count the chickens before they're hatched, because there are applications out there, and we're working with a number of different groups about securing the funding to grow internet or to provide internet. But it's bumpier than I thought it would be, and I'm disappointed by that, because there's a real urgency, and I think it's only going to grow. I think the pandemic, while the health concerns will hopefully soon pass me behind us, I think the way we live has changed, and it's not going to suddenly go back to the way it was. There could be more online working. There could be more online classes, for example. So I think we really cannot afford to wait and have some people with great internet service and other people without.
For people who don't know what is happening on Graminan and who is pioneering.
So there's one. It's a company run by Howard Small, and that's just one example where it's been a challenge. The Smalls have got a great product. They provide a good service at a good price, and customers are happy. And in the past, they've not qualified for government assistance because they've been too small, and so. They now have a plan to look at all the Fundy Isles, and as well as parts of mainland New Brunswick, and that's an example of a New Brunswick success story, providing a service here in a way that is cost effective to the taxpayer. So I know they're looking for some assistance. Their applications in. I'd like to see it happen, but we'll just have to keep plugging away at it. But it's a good example of one company on one island that has been generally successful, looking to expand there, but also looking to expand to include the other Fundy Isles. And in other parts of rural New Brunswick, they don't have access, and I think that's the kind of solutions we need.
And on the topic of Graminan, what's happening with the airport on the island? Yeah,
really, this is kind of a local story, but an important one. There's a plan that's been put forward to both lengthen, expand, and improve the runway there for their airport. I've toured it a couple times now, and it needs some upgrades. There are some big cracks in the runway, but on top of that, they'd like to expand it to be able to have a few more safety protocols in place about landing and taking off and flying when the weather is not great. And why is this important? That airport is probably the number one, I think, safety valve on the island. If there is a medical emergency, we need to make sure that air ambulance can get in and out quickly. The contract is with the local charter on the airport. But if the weather's bad, if the condition of the airport is not adequate, it could have a real impact on the island. And it's been an interesting project to work on because, again, it doesn't fit the normal federal parameters. It's both too big and too small. But by working with the Higgs government, I think there's a realization that this has to happen. Everyone realizes it's a priority. So the winds seem to be blowing in the right direction on this. There's more work to do in terms of the application and getting everything in, but it seems like it's going in the right direction. And there's a great airport committee on the island that's working in conjunction with the village council there, and councillors have made it a priority. So I feel good about it. It's been a good project, and it's an important one. This is not just another project of projects happen across this country. Some are, often they can be very similar. This is a unique one, and it's been an interesting one to work on because it is so important to the island residents.
Can we totally switch gears for a second and talk about the new Firearms Bill and how that will affect our area in general in Southwest New Brunswick? Yeah,
this is C-21, which the federal government has just tabled. And my read here from New Brunswick Southwest, and I think probably most of the province, is it stirred up a bit of a hornet's nest. One of the days in the last election campaign that I really remember, because I was out knocking on doors in Penfield in the ridges there, and the day before, the Liberals had announced that they would be making some changes that would impact law-abiding gun owners. There would be more restrictions, more oversight. There would be a gun buyback program, and I remember, it's campaigns are long, and there's often a lot of back and forth. But this was an issue on the door. I could tell that people that hunt, shoot recreationally, felt like they were being picked on and targeted by the federal government, and there was a lot of irritation that day. And so this is because right now, what people that don't hunt or shoot, folks aren't always aware of the number of rules and regulations that go into getting both a firearms license and then a firearms. It is a course and then a written test, an RCMP background check, then you're licensed. If you buy a firearm, a long gun or ammunition, you have to present that ID. These firearms have to be stored responsibly. And so for a lot of people, they feel they're already following the rules and doing things correctly. And I tend to agree with that. And now the government is coming in and saying, well, we're going to make something even harder and more difficult for you to do as your recreational pastime, as you're hunting. And so it's caused people to be quite upset about it, because it's an issue of safety's being followed. And what we're discovering as well, that's C-21. The federal government just proposed C-22, which is actually going to weaken the sentencing on individuals that commit a crime with a gun.
Okay.
So on one hand, the government's going after law-abiding Canadians who just, they hunt every year. On the other hand, if you actually commit a crime with a firearm, the sentence is going to be weakened. So for a lot of people, that it just stirs them up, and they're wondering, well, why are we not getting tougher penalties on people that use a firearm in a crime, as opposed to just making life more difficult for folks that use a firearm for hunting every year.
Okay, and does it change how? What's the role of municipalities that's being proposed?
So part of C-21 is to allow municipalities, if they choose to do so, to pass a motion at council, or a bill at council, that would disallow handguns in their jurisdiction. And again, this is kind of passing the buck. If the federal government wants to do something, they should pass the law, because we've seen in the United States trying to carve up your country where firearms are allowed in some places but not in others hasn't really worked. Because if you could, someone who lives outside of town, for example, could have a handgun and someone in doesn't, but there's no border, so it doesn't really work as a safety measure, as a way to make people safer, particularly when you consider that owning a handgun in this country is even more difficult than owning a long gun. It requires more licensing, more testing, more police oversight. That provision is viewed, I think, as a bit of a scapegoat by I think even by gun control advocates. They don't view it as acceptable, because it's so easy to get around. The real problem out there is guns that are being smuggled into this country from the United States, in particular, guns that are out there illegally as well. Those are where we're finding the problems in urban centers. It's not the duck hunters and the deer hunters every year that are causing the problem. And this is one of these difficult issues for government, finding the middle ground. But I think in this case, the government's offside here. Not only with rural Canadians, but I think a lot of people, even in the suburbs, enjoy recreational shooting, and that's why you've got so many clubs around our cities as well. In Hanwell, for example, folks that come in come into the rural areas or the suburban areas from the city to shoot. So it's one that I think is. You've not heard the end of this debate, I don't think.
Can we talk a little bit about the vaccine rollout? What's your impressions on how it's going and how Canada's doing?
On the rollout, I think we're just kind of getting traction. It's been it's starting. I think I think that the trouble has been at the federal level with the acquisition of vaccine. One of the biggest mistakes that the Liberals made was trying to secure a deal with CanSino. This is the Chinese company that in partnership with Canadian investors, and it didn't work. Information was transferred to CanSino from our universities, and the deal fell apart. And we lost months negotiating with other pharmaceutical companies, and it's why Canada has ranked so poorly until recently in terms of vaccine acquisition. Things seem to be going better now, but we're still months behind the United Kingdom, the United States. There are other examples as well, like Israel, where they're much further ahead, but they're small. But I think if we compare ourselves to our nearest peers, we've not done well on that. And my worry is, you can only, our health agencies, provincial health agencies are only so big. It'd be far better to give them a set amount every day for a month as opposed to dumping it on them all at once. And I worry that we're going to have so much coming in so quickly that instead of having it over the last 2 months, it's all coming in at the end, that there's going to be a bit of a bottleneck here. And that's something that provinces are going to have to work their way through, I think. And so, I hope that as we vaccine up here through the spring, things will, with that, our freedoms will return, people will venture out more, businesses will open, and we'll start to see our family and friends again. So, we're on the right track, but I think we're months behind. The question of Canada's relation with China is ongoing, and for some reason, I find the Prime Minister is too friendly with China, and why the deal with CanSino was so important over dealing with our traditional allies is a question that remains to me unanswered.
Do you have faith that Canada will be able to produce our own vaccine in the near future? How do you see that going forward? And is there talk in Ottawa of the idea that we probably will be needing to vaccinate every year, or have a schedule that at least means we should be producing our own?
So a lot of good questions in that. So first of all, do I think we should? Yes. Will we? Yes, but it's still not fast enough. I think the fastest kind of ramp up still has us end of the year into next year. So better than what it was. Still too slow, but it's on track. So is it going to help for the current pandemic? No. But will it help if we have to have a shot every year? Yes. So I think it's a matter of time. I take the calls for more manufacturing production here in Canada very seriously. We have discovered the weaknesses in our system where we have outsourced too much of the vital infrastructure manufacturing. We have to get it home, and we have to do more here as a country. I still believe in trade, but I think there are some commodities that we have to have here at home, and vaccines are part of that. I mean, we saw over the last year how China played a double game. On one hand, they were sending us faulty personal protective equipment, or Western firms that were in China, had set up manufacturing there, were prevented from exporting those goods back to countries like Canada, the US, and elsewhere. So we can't take these risks anymore. We cannot have our supply chains in countries that aren't committed to the free flow of goods. And China has proven itself to be not willing to play ball there, and so we have to bring this home. And it's not just, I mean, China's been particularly difficult, but even the United States now we see is looking out for itself first as well. So it's not even a question of China's complicated in a whole host of issues. They've got 2 Canadians locked up. They have been unfair in their trading practices. It's not just a question of China. I think Canada's got to stand up for itself when it comes to producing some of these goods, because even with the pandemic, we see countries even in Europe and here in North America prioritizing their own citizens as well. So we need to have that capability.
And do you think this pandemic has maybe changed the way we do global trade? Will things be different going forward?
I do, and I don't think we've gotten our head around it. Like when I first got involved with my first campaign, it was a 1988 free trade election, a big campaign. I think set the course for this country for the last 30 years. But I think that's run its course. I think the pandemic has changed. I don't even think we're aware yet of how the pandemic has changed our lives going forward, how we interact with each other, countries, communities, health authorities. I think we're going to be a lot more suspicious of trade deals, and we will look at the legal basis that countries have that we trade with to make sure there is a sense of fair play. But I think more and more we're going to be doing more here at home, and you know that has been different, because the last 40 years the consensus has been free trade is good, and I get the theory behind it, and it has produced a lot of benefits. But at the same time, we're also discovering now some of the shortcomings, and I think we're going to have to turn and correct those. So I don't think we're just going to have this period with the pandemic and then the day after get back to the old trading order. I think it is going to change.
Well, and finally, you've had one of the good news stories during the pandemic, which is you have a new baby
Yes.
at home. How is baby Charlotte? How is Kelly?
Good. So Charlotte just turned 8 months. And with that, the last few months, she's developing a personality and awareness, and it's all very, very excited. I'm told walking and standing will be coming soon, which will make things even more interesting. But you know, this has been one of the small silver linings of the pandemic. Working more from home, not traveling to Ottawa as frequently, has meant more home time, which has meant more time with Kelly and baby Charlotte. So that has been nice, and it's been a lot of fun. And it's been, you know, because I'll sometimes be in Parliament all day or having to start at home on Zoom. Sometimes I try to pack in, you know, both time with Charlotte, feed, get ready, and then turn to Parliament. It has meant some busy, hectic mornings. So when you're in Parliament, you leave. You know, the problems at home stay at home, or the challenges. But this has been a question sometimes of double duty. Or, you know, the little baby sat on me at a vote one time because Mom, I think, was on a conference call herself. So we're like a lot of families, we're making the best of it. But I have to say, this has been a good time to be at home, and it's been a benefit. Now, as you know, and your viewers know, there's been a lot of downsides. We've not seen family and friends as much as we would have liked. You know, one of the downsides has been we've not been able to introduce little Charlotte to as many people. So there is definite downside as well that we're all experiencing. I don't want to minimize that or overlook that, but it has been you know, more time at home at this age has been fun.
Well, her photos have been quite a hit on Facebook. I enjoy following them. And thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure. Anytime. I hope to come back soon.
My guest today was MP John Williamson for New Brunswick Southwest. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO-TV.